Hello, everybody. It's Christy Whitman with the Quantum Success Show, where you can get your information and inspiration to create your desires. And I have a friend with me today. Her name is Dr. Sheryl Ziegler, and she's actually a psychologist. And I met her when I was doing my TEDx talk in Wilmington, Delaware. And she and I really connected. And I thought that her message is so timely. It's so important. And I could definitely relate to what her TED Talk was all about. So she specializes in children and families, and she founded and operated the Child and Family Therapy Center at Lowry, which is a private practice in Denver, Colorado. And over the course of 10 years, Dr. Ziegler has led over 10,000 face-to-face sessions focusing on mommy burnout. So if you are a mom, you could probably relate just from even that word, mommy burnout. If you're not a mom, if you're a dad, you probably can relate to maybe your wife going through that, or your partner, or maybe you know somebody. So this show will be for that person, and forward it to them because this will really help them. It's a big issue with a lot of moms. So she has a new book out, which I'm so excited to share with everybody. It's called Mommy Burnout: Reclaiming Your Life and Raising Healthier Children. So she's well known and a familiar face on television, and she has weekly appearances on news programs like local Fox, NBC, and CW networks. She serves as the go-to family and parenting expert for the Chuck and Julie radio show. And nationally, she has appeared on Katie and Katie Couric's Dynamic Talk Show. She's also recently featured on NPR's live 1-hour radio broadcast on navigating the pot talk in times of legal weed. And she's also interviewed for and contributed to the New York Times and Washington Post. So I could go on and on about her bio. She's fantastic. Sheryl, I am so excited that you're here. So I am loving the topic of mommy burnout. I think most moms at some point can relate, whether they're in it or out it, they can totally relate. So I would love to hear from you. What exactly is mommy burnout, and what makes it different than any other type of burnout that women face today?
Yeah, great question. And I'm so happy to be here today. So mommy burnout is chronic stress. And it looks like physical exhaustion, emotional exhaustion, and overwhelm, which leads women, and moms in particular, to feel sometimes even resentful, sort of pessimistic about their ability to influence their families, make serious changes. And it leads to this general sense of lack of personal accomplishment. So burnout is something that's been studied in employment environments, started with caregivers, ER docs, nurses, social workers, back in the 1970s. And so they started seeing there was sort of this caregiver fatigue, where when there was somebody in a profession that was sort of a caregiver, after a while, if their stress wasn't managed, then they would become all of those things. They would become exhausted, overwhelmed, cynical at work, those kind of things. So what happened was, just in my private practice, I really am pretty child focused, but I always work with kids in the context of their families. So they would come in and they'd initially start off with whatever the reason is they're coming in. I think my kid has ADHD, or I'm having problems with potty training, whatever it would be. And of course, the first time I just ask general questions, how are things going? How do you feel about your parenting? And then, how are you? Family history. And before you know it, these women were sharing those kinds of things. They'd say very similar things. I'm exhausted all the time. I feel overwhelmed. I don't think I'm good at this mom thing. I knew this was going to be hard, but I didn't know it was going to be this hard. So, at first it was like, okay, this is some women. Then after a while, it was like, wow, this is a lot of women. And then really, when I had my second child, I felt like I could relate. I started to feel that relation. I started to feel like, oh, I don't have enough time either. There aren't enough hours in the day. Those phrases that we all use all the time, oh, there's just not enough hours in the day. I started to feel that as well. So I started to I wanted to understand it, what actually is happening. And so at first I started off with just sort of, what's the history of mothering? Did the generations before us feel this way? Did they feel overwhelmed? So it just led me down a path of sort of history of mothering and history of parenting, and then led me to burnout. Somehow, really just reading about caregiver and compassion fatigue, I thought being a mother is the ultimate caregiver. And it's a job that never ever stops. And so that's sort of how it came to be.
I remember when I had my first baby, Alex, and it was in the middle of the night and he started crying, and I felt like, okay, I want to punch out of this job, because it was like, how do I, it was that feeling of like, oh my God, this is like that moment of overwhelm for me. It's like, this is forever.
Yes.
And I can't quit it, like it's not a job I can quit. So for me, having that perspective and seeing, how I was feeling, I had to learn to be more allowing and understand that, especially when he was a baby, like as I was working at home and building my business, I put him down for a nap, and I would work until he started crying or till it was time for him to wake up. And then I had to learn to be more flexible and more allowing, because if I got rigid and if I was not flexible, then I would get even more stressed out. And at that point, then is like, okay, listen, I need help here. Right. So that's when I hired someone to come and watch the baby while I taught my classes, and then had a nanny come on Fridays so that I could get all of my stuff that I needed to like kind of finalize the week to feel like I was prepared to go into the next week of work, and let him be taken care of by a really nurturing, loving woman. And that, just having her come just for like 4 hours on a Friday, I was able to feel like I could breathe, because it was getting overwhelming. So what do you recommend for, because, like I wrote a book about the art of having it all, right? And so there's so many different opinions and perspectives about having it all, and that a lot of women and mothers try to have it all, but they're going for burnout. And of course, what you're talking about, mommy burnout. So how does the idea of women and mothers having it all contribute to mommy burnout in your perspective? Trying to push and get, and, instead of coming from an energetic, like, how can I get support, and how can I have it all, but not necessarily do it all?
Right. I think one of the things is having it all is a really subjective definition. And so we need to be comfortable enough in our own skin and shoes to say, for me, having it all would look like this. And for the next woman, it looks like this. But what happens is I am, let's say, the average mom, and I'm spending hours a day on social media. So all of a sudden now I'm seeing what other people's maybe have it all looks like. And I think, oh, well, I haven't done that, and I haven't run a marathon, and oh my gosh, now this person's onto a triathlon, or they're vacationing in Hawaii. We're just like driving 2 hours away. What's happening is that we are losing a sense of what we each want as individual women. I think stay-at-home moms, they're uncomfortable in their skins because they're saying, some of them are saying, I have a college degree, or I have dreams too. But, really, I'm lucky enough to stay home with the kids. So that's what I'm doing. So those stay-at-home moms are sharing with me the whole, like, is this really it? Like, is it? And there's that segment. And then there's the working moms who are saying, I'm killing myself. For what? Like, yes, I want to be whatever it is, a teacher, a lawyer, a doctor, whatever it is that they want to be. But at the price of what? So it's interesting how both groups of women question themselves. They don't, I think, generally have a sense of like, if I had it all, what would that actually look like? So that's one piece. I think, though, in the having it all piece, one of the big things that's missing is self-care.
Yes.
And that's probably a huge takeaway of the book. Like, it's almost like a compelling argument for all of us to say, we come first, kids come second. That is not culturally at all a common popular belief. Kids come first. I want the best for my kids. I want the best school and the best food and the best of everything for them. And I'll just eat their scraps. I'll just eat whatever's on their plates. I'll sleep 4 hours a night. I will overspend so I can give them the best holiday or the best birthday ever. And that's it. It's not just once a year. It's every week, every month. There are excuses that we have that say, oh, I don't matter, but my kids, now that makes me a great mom because I do the best for them. And I'm just here to say it's really not that way. That's backwards thinking. And we really need to shift that dialogue.
I 100% agree with you because, and it's both and, because you can give them the best food. You can, instead of giving them McDonald's, you can give them like nice, organic meat and nice organic vegetables. You can do all those things that you want to do for them. But I always say, and I had a teacher years ago Karen Wilson, that would say to me, you got to give from the saucer. Most of us are trying to give from the cup, especially as a mom. We're giving it all away and we have nothing left for ourselves. So what happens to ourselves? Our own self-esteem goes down. We don't have the proper sleep to take care of our bodies. So we're getting sick. I mean, there's this, I always talk about, there's a belief that if your kids get sick, you get sick. Yeah, if you're not taking care of yourself as a mom and getting the proper sleep and getting the proper nutrients and taking care of moving your body, getting rid of the toxins out of your body and drinking the proper amount of water, you are going to get sick because you're not taking care of yourself. But it's not like, oh, I have kids that get sick, now I get sick. You have to unpack all that. And for me, it's like, I remember, when Alex was born, my firstborn, Frederick and I made a choice that, every Saturday, I get like 2 hours to myself to go and get a massage. So I don't have to be Christy, the businesswoman or coach or teacher or healer. I don't have to be the wife. I don't have to be the mother. I just get to be Christy, getting pampered, doing what I love. It might not be that I want to go get a massage this week. Maybe I want to go shopping, or maybe I want to go have coffee with a friend or whatever it is. But I get that chunk of time for me on Saturdays. And then he gets that time on Sundays to go play golf. And that's a way for both of us to feel like we're filling up our cup, and then we can give from the saucer. We give from the overflow. And when I don't do that, you're right. I can feel like I'm doing everything for them. And then I start to feel resentful. And it's like, whoa. I need to pull it back and take care of me so that I have enough to take care of them so I don't feel resentful.
Exactly. I mean, it's so easy, right? Within just a few minutes, you connect to this. And we need to have these honest conversations so that we are, when we're seeing the mom at drop off, or we're seeing someone, we're not just like, oh yeah, I'm good. Or someone says, oh, how are you, Christy? And you said, oh, I'm so busy. And then I would say, oh, me too. I'm so busy too. And somehow it's like a badge of honor. Like, I'm important because I'm so busy and so are you. And what that does is that builds a wall between us where we don't really authentically share our mothering experience, maybe our career experiences, whatever it might be, because we've already established, I'm too busy for you and you're too busy for me. So it was nice to see you later. And we walk away. Right. And within this self-care piece, like you said, maybe I'll meet a friend for coffee. Meeting up with other women, being with other moms, or just other women, people that fill you up, is essential to our mental and physical health. Essential. It's not optional.
Agree. There was a friend I had in Montreal, and our kids were exactly the same age, and we're literally 2 weeks apart, Alex and Leo. And we would go to dinner, just she and I, and we would talk about like what was frustrating us and we would have some cocktails. And then, as the cocktails, we would drink a couple of, Cosmos, we would talk about, what's bothering us and be able to, like, oh my God, I didn't know it would be this hard. And oh my God, I didn't know that, like they could just push a button like that. And you're like, oh my God, now I'm in a self-growth program. Like, oh my God, I've got to like now look at this thing. I always say that parenting is the best self-growth program there is, because if you didn't know that you had buttons to push, they're going to push them. And you're going to have to grow up with them, and you're going to have to grow up faster than they do, because, I don't want an 8-year-old parenting an 8-year-old, or else all my buttons are going to be pushed. So I have to get older than my kids, emotionally, to be able to raise them so that I'm coming from an adult and they feel safe that an adult is raising them, not an 8-year-old. So we would talk about these things and talk about, like, she would say, God, Leo's not getting the bike thing, and she'd say, can I come over with Alex and have them ride bikes together? I'd be like, yeah, and then there'd be something where Maxim was having a hard time swimming, so we would go over to her house and they would watch them swim, and then Maxim forgot he was swimming and was having just a good time. So having that time and being around other moms that have kids that are going through the same things, I mean, that was like therapy for me.
Yes. And it only takes one person out of that relationship to start the conversation. And before you know it, the other person is enjoying it. They didn't even know they needed it. Yeah. They didn't even know, like, wow, I really needed to have this conversation today. And that's huge. The fact that you had that experience was huge. Maybe you realized that at the time, you might not have even realized how important it was.
Yes.
Yeah. And so just think right now, though, we have a loneliness crisis in our country. And with social media and people being as socially connected, but not really in authentic ways, again, you could have 1,000 connections on social media, but if you need somebody to kind of swim with your kid or watch your kid after school, how many people can you call? And that's the way that we're raising kids right now, is with these sort of sometimes these false connections and not really authentic ones, the ones that we really need, the ones that'll kind of keep us moving forward and more genuine in the process.
Well, I love it. I know you go through this in your book, and I loved your TED Talk, but I love to know, this is, in this show, we try to give people really good tips and information if they never go buy the book or if they never watch the TED Talk. And I encourage everybody to go buy the book, and we're going to put a link right underneath the video. So links, and you can go right to Amazon or wherever you choose. Mommyburnout.com is Dr. Cheryl's website. But I always like to end on a really good note of how can someone determine if they have mommy burnout, and how can they turn their burnout into, being aware and turn it into something positive for themselves and their families?
Yeah. So you said something key, being aware. The first piece is being aware. You want to look for things like, how irritable are you? How is your sleep? How much resentment that you may never have shared with anybody do you have? When's the last time that you were sexual or intimate with your partner? Are you disengaging there? How much time do you spend on social media? Are you zoning out in order to just zone into a whole different world? Are you constantly running around, forgetting things? That forgetful piece is huge. So feeling like I'm late to everything, I'm always running from one place to the other, I lose things. All of those things, I think what happens is, if I say that to an average mom says back to me, oh yeah, me too. And we all just sort of accept that. So what I would like to see is that we go, I think that maybe that I might be burned out, and I can't just let that go, because it has physical effects on people. It literally does. We gain weight, we're pre-diabetic, we have muscle tension in our bodies. So I think that's the first piece, is just the awareness of what some of the signs are. Right now, we have 12 million plus women in this country, in the US, that are diagnosed with clinical depression. And what I want to say is that I think a percentage of those women, and I don't know what it is, but I am sure that there's a segment of those women that aren't actually clinically depressed, they're burned out. And I really wholeheartedly believe that. And taking medication or talking about depression in just the terms of depression looks different than if you were burned out. The strategy is sort of different for both of them. Although there's a lot of overlap, it's different. Burnout says self-care, set limits, boundaries, put yourself first, connect with your partner, make sure you're spending time with friends, really value community, get involved in your community. It's a key factor. Those are burnout. Depression is different. Depression is really looking at some underlying issues and genetic factors. And so it's just a different approach. So within some of those are some of the ideas on what you would do with burnout. Burnout would be all about getting connected, would be the number one thing. Connected with your spouse and connected with your community, and really starting to say everything doesn't have to be perfect. This level of perfectionism, this idealism of what motherhood should be like really being done with that, and being done with it even in a humorous way, because there's a lot of humor around it. But the truth is that it's actually a pretty serious matter. So taking it seriously in that way, huge difference for burnout. It's just really about self-care and connection.
You just hit the nail on the head. For me, when I let go of having to be the perfect mother, which is kind of like trying to find a unicorn and capturing it. When I let go of that and can just admit, oh my gosh, I made a mistake, or, whatever, and not try to be so perfect, my kids are seeing me as a real person. And it's like, this is what you do when you make a mistake, or this is what you do when you don't get it right, or, whatever it is. And then I'm quick to take a responsibility for myself and say, gosh, I'm sorry. If I would have known, I would have done it this way, or a different option would have been this way. And it teaches them to take accountability and responsibility for themselves as well. And, I can't expect myself to be perfect. And, I having my own recovering from perfection issues and perfect pictures before, that was a big one for me as a mom. I just now show up and do my best. And sometimes my best is going to be better than others. And sometimes I'm going to need to go to sleep at 7:30 at night. And kids, you're going to have to tuck me in tonight because I'm exhausted. But I have to take care of myself so I can wake up and, start all over again the next morning. So you're awesome. I'm so glad that we connected at the TEDx talk. We have this like sisterhood, and I really appreciated your message when I saw you on stage. And I think you're up to some really amazing things. So any last words that you want to share with everybody?
No, just thank you so much for having me on. And I really want to see a movement and change this year. I feel like this is the year of the woman. And I want to make sure that mothers, women as mothers is also included in some of the very needed changes and empowerment. I love your last piece about perfectionism. Once we can show our kids that failure is truly a part of our daily lives and that mistakes are good because they're growth opportunities, I think our next generation is going to be so much healthier.
Absolutely. I agree. So everybody, this is my family. Let me know what you're taking away from this interview, from, Dr. Sheryl's information and takeaways. Leave me a comment. Let me know. Let's continue the conversation. It's an important conversation to have. Like Dr. Sheryl said, it's a movement, and we need to make sure that more women are happy, because if mama is happy, it makes everybody happy. The kids are happier. If you have a partner, it all starts with you. And it all starts inside of you, and you have to make yourself happy and take care of yourself. And, it all just comes out from that place. So in any way that either one of us can support you in that, please let me know in the comments, and we'll talk to you next week. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Sheryl.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching, and here is a related video to watch right now. Also, check out my free webinars on creating whatever you want in your life using the universal laws that I explain in each webinar. So share your thoughts by leaving a comment and continue the conversation at ChristyWhitman.com.